Welcome everybody to today's client-based training. Today we're going to look at invoicing and service fees. This is the third in our series and hopefully it's been helpful to everybody and hopefully this one will be as well. Let's get started with our invoicing. We're going to start, we're already in Client-Based Online and we're going to use my profile to play with today. If you were with us last week, we created a res card for Hawaii. We had a couple of hotels and insurance. We've really kind of done most of the heavy lifting by creating the res card, so invoicing is really a very simple procedure. We already have all the information, the cost, that kind of thing in here. All we're going to do now is invoice it. Now, you can invoice. If I didn't want to invoice all of them, I don't have to. If I just wanted to invoice one segment of a res card, I could do that as well. But today we're going to invoice all of them. To do that, we're just going to generate invoice. When you come into the invoice screen, you have remarks that are automatically, these are canned remarks. If you don't want them on there, just delete them. If you want to put your own remarks, put them on there. Most of you, I realize, are just doing the invoicing to send through to accounting, so you don't really care about that. But just FYI, if you are using it for your client, you can make those remarks there. Trip balance due date, I could add that in there, again, if I were sending it to my client and I cared about that. And if I actually put that information when I built the res card, it would automatically show up. The next thing we're going to look at is form of payment. It's almost always going to be credit card. If I have stored the credit card in the body of my profile, I could do this and it would show me what credit cards I could have. I'm going to click on the one that I want. If I do not have one already stored in the profile, I can just type it in. Please remember that when you add the credit card, we are not actually charging the credit card. The charge is actually done by the vendor, by the hotel, the cruise, the tour company that you gave the credit card to. This is just advising accounting that we have charged it to a credit card. So that said, it doesn't really make a big difference as to what credit card is in here unless it's something you want your client to see. Here is the body of the res card right here. We have multiple segments, 1, 2, and 3. Again, if I did not want to invoice all of them, I would just uncheck those that I did not want to invoice. But for now, we're going to invoice all of them. It always shows the vendor, the traveler, the agent, and here is the cost. All of these costs were entered when we built the res card. And I cannot change them in this screen. You'll note they're grayed out. The only thing that I have that is actionable for me is this invoice. If I needed to go back and change this part, I would have to go back into the body of the res card and complete that or make that change. So as far as today is this invoice is going to be for this segment, this amount. I'm going to leave that alone. Notice over here under travel type, you really don't ever have to mess with that. But you'll note that when you do a tour or a cruise, it will note that. But again, you really don't ever have to make any changes there. So really, you just have to note the amount. If that's the amount you want to invoice, you're good. Down here, you can just skip through this. It's just kind of reiterating who the agent, what the credit card is. I actually could change the credit card in here if I wanted to. For example, if you had 2 people traveling and one paid for one segment and one paid for this segment, I could put different credit cards in here. Again, for accounting purposes, we're not really charging the card. I don't know that you'd want to go to that trouble unless you were creating an invoice for your client that you needed to show them that. Here we have segment 2, it's checked, so we're going to invoice that, and segment 3. All I need to do down here is preview it. I always want to preview it first to make sure that I have it all correct. Because once it's printed, you can't go back and reprint it. I mean, you can generate, you would then have to void the invoice and start all over. So this will save you kind of a headache. Notice it's not invoiced yet, so there's no invoice number. It's our draft copy. So we look and we can see, all right, we're charging this amount, we're charging that amount, and we're charging the insurance. So here is our total. This is the amount, and notice that it does say that it was charged to that credit card, and our balance is 0, which is our goal, to show a 0 balance. So we have done well, and we're ready to generate that invoice. Now you'll note we have the invoice number. Looks exactly the same. It's done, and we're good to go. When we close out of this, note our res card total now shows the amount that we've invoiced and a 0 balance due. I could reprint that invoice if I wanted to go back in and look at it. I can't remember something. I wanted to make a note. You don't really have to print it. Just click on reprint so you can see it again. Or I could email it to my client. Again, I know not everyone's doing that. You're just invoicing for accounting, but there is a little tidbit here that you might want to consider. It defaults to the email that's listed in the profile. This is my profile, so it's my email, but I could change that if I wanted to. I might just put in invoice. And note that there are some remarks down here which you can change to put, you know, the different agency name or whatever you wanted to put in here will print on the invoice. Now, why would I even care about doing this? The one thing that, you know, it's just, if you had multiple segments, sometimes that's easier just in one document for your client. But the other thing about it is, too, to email this to my client, I'm going to hit send current, and notice it's pending. It's going to take a minute, in progress. And now it's complete. I'm going to click on OK. So I've invoiced my client. Now, here's the caveat here. It says we have not created a mailer. Do you have to do that? No. But if I wanted to create a mailer, why would I want to create a mailer? It basically just documents that I sent this email and when I sent it. Notice it defaults to today and the time. And it does show the remarks. It doesn't show the body of the invoice. I would go back into that reprint function to look at the actual invoice. Why would I want to do this? It's kind of a CYA thing. I'm clicking here, and then I could go into activities, and I see this mailer that was created. I could view it and see if there were ever any question of my client saying, well, you never sent me an invoice. No, I didn't see those remarks that you noted, or no, that's the wrong date. You have at your disposal in a very easy to access way. You can easily say, well, on July the 8th at 4:13, I emailed you that invoice. So it's just kind of a best practice kind of thing. Again, nothing you have to do, but just note that it's there if you want it. Let's look at a different type of invoice. Let's look at one where we're just going to do a deposit, not the full payment. All right, in this one, remember we did this one last week. We created the res card for this client going to Hawaii. Notice here is our total. Here's our total with commission. We're going to generate the invoice. We're going to put in our form of payment, which is credit card. Notice I don't have one stored in this profile, so I'm just creating a false number. Notice here, this changed. Now, this is the only time you might want to change here. Under travel type, It says deposit, which it is, but when I do final payment, I might want to change that to tour final. Again, you don't have to change any of that, but just FYI, it's there. This is the only segment on this res card, so we just have this one to invoice. So we're going to invoice that. First of all, we're going to preview it. Okay, well, actually, before previewing, I forgot we need to change this. We're only going to invoice the deposit. So here is the amount we have. Here's our credit card. Here's the amount due. This is the amount not invoiced. We only want to invoice our deposit of $400. Notice it takes out the commission, just $400. Here we have now the payment amount, credit card info. Let's preview it. And we can see total amount. This invoice is for $400. That's what we want, so let's generate that invoice. Here we go with our invoice number, and we're all set. Again, we could email this to our client. We could reprint it, whatever we need to do. So it's really as easy as that. Now, when we want to talk about service fees, there are two ways we can do a service fee. If we already have a res card, like we do here, we might just want to add a service fee to that. If we don't already have a res card, we would create one for the service fee. So let's look at both ways. First of all, let's just add one. So we have in the body of our res card, we have our Delta Vacations tour. Now we're just going to add another feature, just like we would add hotel, car, cruise, whatever. We're adding service fee. Under vendor, it's always very easy, service fee. That's our vendor. We don't have to put in anything else except the amount. In this case, we're going to charge $100. Now notice it defaults to 96%, and that's because when Ondavo Travel charges your client's credit card, it charges, the credit card company charges 4%, so that's why it's 96%. So we'll save that. Now notice, we've already invoiced $400. That's our balance. Now we're going to add our other $100. So it bumped it up. And remember, like with all res cards, we have to add the start date. We don't have to put an end date, just the start date. And we can go ahead and invoice it right from here. We're going to generate an invoice. Now remember, we've already invoiced our Delta Vacations. We're not ready to invoice the final payment yet, so I'm just going to uncheck that. All I want to do is invoice this service fee of $100. Again, I would encourage you to preview it first. And here we have it. Now, notice it says prior invoice totals $400, agency fee $100. Notice it doesn't put it up in here. It just puts it as an agency fee. There's the $100, this invoice $100, and you're good to go. So all we need to do then is generate the invoice and we're done. If, for example, you have a client, you're going to charge them the fee right now before I do any work, then I wouldn't have a res card or anything. I just need to create a res card for him. So let me just do that for the service fee. Before I get started work, I'm going to charge him $200. So I'm just going to create a res card like we did last time. In this case, I'm just going to name it service fee. You name it anything you want to. We're going to just say service fee is the name of this res card. You still have to put traveler. And then we kind of pick it up the way we did before. Only this way, there is nothing in the res card. We're just going to do the service fee. Remember, our vendor is service fee. We're going to put in however much we're going to charge him. It defaults to 96%. We have to put in a date. And we're ready to invoice that service fee. We're going to do generate invoice. It's the only thing in our res card. So there's our $200. We have to put in our form of payment. Now, here's the only time we always do credit card. And yes, we are charging his credit card. I don't have a good explanation to tell you why this is cash, but it is. I know that's just a strange thing, but you just have to take that on faith. That's really the only time a wire transfer or a service fee, it will always be cash. You can kind of think of, yes, we're charging the credit card, but we are the service provider, so we're being paid or you are being paid by check or cash. So anyway, please remember it's cash. Then that's all we need. We've got the form of payment. It's going to be $200, and we're going to preview it. And agency fee, notice it really doesn't have anything in the body, just agency fee, $200. That's the amount paid by cash. And we're going to generate invoice. I'm not going to generate another invoice because I'll just have to void it, but that's what it would look like. So there you go. It's a pretty easy way. Now, with service fees, remember it's kind of a two-step thing because we are not actually in the using client base. We are not we are not actually charging the card. So we have to have accounting charge the card. How we would have to do that is to go to AirPortal, log into AirPortal, and we're going to the Resource Center. Well, let me sign in first. Now, it's kind of unfortunate this is happening today because there's a glitch in the system and they want to move these forms elsewhere. So what I'm telling you right now may not always be the case, and right now you cannot get this form submitted, but hopefully this will resolve itself today or tomorrow, so we'll see. Anyway, you would go to AirPortal, Resource Center, click on Forms, Charge Request Online. The account name is your client's name, the invoice number that you just invoiced, the credit card, the billing address, etc., the amount you're charging, $200, and submit. That way accounting gets it, they make the charge, and they'll send you something that says they have completed that charge. So doing a service fee is kind of a two-step thing right now. We're working on another option for that, but as of right now, that's what it is. So you would just want to go into client base, invoice like we did, and then do the charge form. I think that pretty much covers it. I hope that answers questions. And if it doesn't, if you still have questions, contact me and I would be happy to help you individually or answer questions or whatever else you need on client base. I'm here to help. So hopefully you'll join us next week when we're going to look at filters and reports that we can run from client base. There's all kinds of cool things you can do. So hopefully you will join us then. And until next week, I will look forward to talking to you again. So thank you for joining us today. Have a good week.